So what this React library does, this React library allows us to easily configure and use our forms so we don't have to. Pretty much we can say, hey, here's my forms, here's what text field, here's what's drop down, here's what checkboxes I want. Make it for me and do all the HTML stuff for me. Because at the end of the day, I'm just going to provide this library a JSON object of what I want my form to look like, and it's going to do the rest of the magic. So, the first thing we need to do, and for the record, I just learned about this morning, so this is going to be learning for both of us too. This is kind of what we get. If we can give it a JSON object that they want, we can pass it into their component, and we'll get a form that looks like this without having to write any sort of HTML at all. And anytime I don't have to write HTML, that's probably a win for me, to be completely honest. So let's go through this. Let's go over to the documentation. That's always a good first step. And I want to get started by installing the package. So this is a React package. So I'm going to come over here, yarn add React JSON schema dash forms. And this is going to go onto our add pet page, which currently has nothing. So
what happens if I have something? I have to delete everything?
Yeah. If you want to use this, you do. You don't have to use this. If you want to use just straight up HTML and do it yourself, that's fine too. I'm not going to stop you. So now that I've added this, whenever I go into documentation, I always look for the simplest example and see if I can get that to work. This is their simplest example, and let's break it down a little bit. So it looks like that we are importing via library. Looks like we're defining a schema. That schema has a title, a type, required, an array, and some properties as well. And inside of the render, looks like we just pass it our schema, so we pass it this object, as well as some events that we want to listen to. And it looks like we get three things: a text box, a done checkbox, and a submit. So just kind of map it back together. It looks like this property defines this title. This property defines that done. So let's get this working. So I'm going to bring this over. And then I'm going to bring over the form component as well. As well as their log function too. So now what I expect on my pet page, can you all see that? Okay. What I expect on my add a pet page, I should see the header, and I should see the form, and my form should have three things: the text box, the checkbox, and the submit button. come here and let's pray. Hey. There we go. May not look the prettiest, but it's there, which is good. So now let's go in and let's modify this to meet our needs. Because for our needs, we're going to need all the stuff that's on the pet model. So like name, age, is good with kids, all that stuff. So I'm going to come in here, get rid of the required for now. And I'm going to use this title property as my template because it's working code. I know it works and I want to do the same thing but with different names. So I'm going to use this as kind of like a template. So name, pet name, let me bring up my model. It's a type string. Default no name given. Species string. Species. Species given. We have breed. Pet breed. No breed given. We have age, which is a number. Pet age. Default value would be 0. Is good with kids. Good with kids. Boolean. Kid friendly. Default. Probably error on side of caution there. Get rid of that for right now and add image URL.
So why number?
Because number is an age.
Why not enter?
We're in JavaScript land. And in JavaScript, we don't have ints or doubles or floats or anything like that. We only have numbers. We only have a number type.
That was a very good question.
It was, because it reminds us how awesome C# is and how flexible JavaScript is. I guess.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Now that I've added this, if I refresh the page,
So we're doing this in JavaScript.
we are pet name, pet species, pet breed, pet age, kid friendly, and pet picture. Doesn't look the best, right?
But it exists.
But it
And it
exists.
did 2 months ago.
Yes.
Can you edit that with CSS at all? Or?
We can. We can edit it with CSS. And we probably should. So let's check out what's here, because we know what it's producing. And this is the CSS, this is the HTML that it produces for us. A div with a class, form group, field string, a whole bunch of stuff. So it gives us these pre-populated class names for us to go in and put our own CSS behind it.
Is that divided? Is that acceptable?
What, the,
I know it's because it's a template, presumably it would utilize divs as its like tags, presumably. But would that be divided if a human wrote that?
yes,
Okay.
if a human wrote the, so I know where this is going, and just to kind of foreshadow, we also get like validation as well. Like those might be for like error messages and stuff like that. like, is age actually a number? They'll say, no, we can't submit this until you give us an actual valid age. So it could be for the error messages. And also these class names are set up like something called Bootstrap. We chatted about Bootstrap, right? What is Bootstrap?
It's a CSS frame.
Templates.
Yeah, it's a CSS framework. In terms of what that means, that we have a whole bunch of built-in classes that have built-in styles that make our apps prettier, so we don't have to. It's our big CSS easy button. We say it's an easy button, but it's really not, because you have to learn Bootstrap in order to use Bootstrap. But this produces for us a form that actually has Bootstrap classes already in there. So we could just add a Bootstrap CSS sheet, and this would be styled up and so much better. So let's do that, because that's ugly. So I'm going to cheat a little bit. Bootstrap. I'm going to cheat and use a CDN. It started. So I'm just going to bring over and link the CSS. And with that, this should be prettier. And it is.
So can we do that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do you want us to?
So you probably shouldn't link to a CDN. You should probably actually install it and use a lot of...
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, but yeah, if you want to use Bootstrap, I'm not going to stop you. I'll actually probably encourage it. If you...
Okay, cool.
Because, like, this looks a hell of a lot better, right?
Yeah.
And I added a link to a style sheet, and that's it.
Because we'll use Bootstrap for our caps.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Do you copy?
Yeah, I brought over the link to the Bootstrap site, the Bootstrap CSS. So this is bringing in a whole bunch of CSS classes and CSS stuff for me. And I got that from the Bootstrap website, right here. Like, oh, here's what we need. And I copied that and put it in the index of HTML.
Doesn't matter where.
What?
On the index of HTML?
Inside the head.
Always in that.
For CSS, it's always in the head. Always.
Like font awesome.
Exactly like Font Awesome.
And so Bootstrap is just a set of standards of class names and this and that and what have you. So that's why it's so easily just copy.
Yeah. So let's just kind of look at what Bootstrap actually gives us while we're here conveniently talking about it. People use it for layout a lot. And where's the examples? Grid system. So like, here's a standard 3-column layout with Bootstrap. You see how we have a couple of divs? Class container, class row, class column small, 1 of 3 columns, right? Those are standard names that come with Bootstrap. So if I go into that Bootstrap CSS file that I linked to inside of my head, I will find all these classes there. So this is how we kind of define out our structure. This technically 12-column system is very flexible and covers pretty much every single website design ever. But where it's also great is that in addition to being used to lay out stuff, it's also used to style your website. So we head down here to content. A very common one to look at is, components is like buttons. So with our buttons, we can style it using those 2 classes, btn, and then BTN primary, BTN secondary, BTN whatever, and so forth and so forth. What we can do now as developers is if we don't like how like BTN secondary looks, we can now overwrite that styling and create it ourselves. And that's where Bootstrap theme comes into play. It's like, I don't like that blue, gray, green, red, yellow, blue, light, dark, link stuff. That doesn't fit my theme, my look and feel. I'm going to go and overwrite all this stuff. So the HTML and CSS are still the same. The actual markup is still the same. But now we can just swap out CSS files. And it'll be all fine and dandy.
Do you think they made their own website with Bootstrap?
They did. You might have heard of it. It's called Twitter.
Well, I meant like this website, like their Get Bootstrap website, but that works too.
This is a very Bootstrap website.
Is Swagger use Bootstrap?
I believe so.
Okay, because I noticed when you were on that other page, like it had like the colored link things. I was like, oh, that looks like our
Yeah, right.
All that stuff.
I mean, let's find out. Maybe not. It does not.
Oh,
At least not.
good on them.
Yeah.
No, Bootstrap's fine. If they did it themselves, like,
Yes.
hey, kudos. Good for them.
Yeah, they do not.
Wow.
That's a really good comment. I just want to talk about this for a second because this is a really good teaching point. So you see, we've crashed over their code, we've looked at their HTML. Let's pretend that we're on the Swagger team for a second. And I go, oh, why do we have a script tag that's checking the user agent looking for edge? Like, what's up with that? To me, that looks weird and janky. But it's commented, right? But it doesn't tell me what it's doing. It points to a ticketing system that they have on GitHub. And it gives me an actual issue number, issue 1371. So now what I can do is that I can probably go to this URL, maybe.
Maybe.
Edit as HTML. Yeah. And go, why is that janky code there? That code that doesn't make sense, or why is it there? And it's like, oh, we have the entire issue of what the issue is. Closing as won't fix.
The question is this an issue where is there something called Edge, or are they just complaining about Microsoft Edge?
No, there's actually something called Edge.
Okay.
So the user agent is what is sent along with your browser to the server, and it tells you what browser it is. So like Chrome has one, each browser has its own one. And obviously Microsoft Edge has Edge in it.
So it is a complaint about Microsoft
It pretty much is, because it's saying something's busted in Edge unless we do this.
Good to know.
So they're saying, hey, if the user agent contains the word Edge, then we want to make window.fetch. You know what fetch is. Make fetch undefined. For whatever reason. They want to say that the Windows Edge version of fetch is terrible. We want to use our own.
Interesting.
Yeah. Glad I looked. So, but no, this isn't Bootstrap. Yeah, this isn't Bootstrap. It looked like it. I would have guessed it was, but it's not. So unwind, unwind. Here we have our form. So what does a form need to do? A form, whenever we click this submit button, all the way down here, this submit button, whenever we click that, we need to do a post back to our web server, right? Because a post will create a pet. Do we have that endpoint built yet? No, we don't. So we're going to have to build that endpoint. But before we build that endpoint, let's get us actually sending the proper data over. Even though we'll send it to a 404 and it won't be found, I just want to like start throwing stuff there. So whenever I do have the endpoint up, I know what it should be doing, and I know that it'll be working. So when I click submit, back to my console, what happens? Image URL should be a string. Validation. I get an object here with all my form data. So I need to take this form data and I need to send it back to my server. So up here, I'm going to create a function, submit. Yeah, on submit is fine. And instead of passing their function, we're going to call this dot on submit or on submit. We get our event, and we want to do an Axios. Import Axios from Axios. And it's going to be a post. And we want to go to localhost 5001 slash API slash pets. And we want to pass it pretty much everything inside of our everything that's inside of that event, that form data. So if I type in Terry, Terry will be a dog, a poodle, 3, kid friendly, picture, kitten, tabby, place kitten. Have you seen Place Kitten? Place Kitten is a URL site that gives you placeholders, but they're cats.
Somebody had a vision and they made it a reality.
Yeah, there was a developer that said, you know what? I need to have this happen. I need a placeholder. And you know what? It needs to be cats. So yeah, but now I want to send all this data over to my over to my API. And we said that it's all inside of this form data object. And really, if I named everything right, and I think I did, I should be able to just pass it event.formData. Resp also.log resp to do something. Type all that again. Terry kitty, Abby 4, kid friendly. No. Submit. Unsupported media type. It's doing a post. So let's, now that we have that, we have our post that's sending it the right data. Let's add that controller endpoint over here. Because now that we're lobbing it, oh, we already have it.
This one's not before. Because I swear we did it.
Yeah, we already have it. Yay. That's nice.
So what was the error?
I don't know. Let's find out. Unsupported media type on post.
Is there a specific type for URLs other than string? Everything else is just string.
I've seen this error before, and it's really... Oh, is that it? I think that's it. That's it. That's it. We are sending over our data as form data, but we want to send it over as JSON.
To JSON function.
No, it's nothing crazy. We just need to actually make it an object. Post, so name event dot form data.
That's
No.
that spreader thing that I asked about the other day, right?
Yeah. What does the spreader thing that you asked about the other day do?
It basically creates like an object out of the data you give it, so that you don't have to keep doing like whatever this dot property dot whatever. You can just do it once.
Yep. So const data, just to kind of see what it's doing. Event.form data. That is the equivalent of doing const data2 or data1 equals name equals event.form data form data.name species equals event.form data.species and so forth with every single property. This the spread operator just says, you know what? Just do it for all of them. So I don't have to. Hey, that's better. Anytime the error message changes, that's good. That means progress has been made. Internal server error. We're sending everything correctly, but the response, and I think I know what the response is that we didn't send a shelter ID with it. Even though we're adding it, we're not giving it a shelter ID. So how do we do that? We need to know what shelter that we're adding it to. So that's going to be a drop-down menu somewhere or some way to say, hey, what shelter is this added to?
So you could like dynamically populate that drop-down thing with all of the shelters that you add by just mapping over the JSON that you get request. And
Yes.
doing like the names.
Yep. So now, whenever we go to add a page, we need to make a call to our API to get all available shelters, and then dynamically add that drop-down to our form, and then use that whenever we post the data back. So, correct. So let's just kind of map that out real fast before we start changing things. We need to, when we load the component, go to the API and get all the shelters. Dynamically update our form, the form to show the shelters. And then we need to post the shelter, the selected shelter ID, back to the API. Sounds like a lot, right? But all the pieces for that are already there. So we just have to extend what's already there. So let's load the component. So down here on component did mount, we need to do an axios.get HTTPS localhost 5001/API/shelters. Shelters or shelter? Shelter. It is shelter. All right. Then console.log resp.data. Before we try to do anything else, let's make sure that this works. There's our shelters. Loving pets in shady acres. So now we need to dynamically update our form. Right now our form is a JSON object that's just kind of stored in JavaScript, right? It's very static. But now, since it's going to be changing, we want to put that in state. Because remember, anytime something starts changing, put it in state. So state equals, we'll do form schema.
Is this going to be hat hooks, hat?
Yes, because it doesn't matter. That's kind of like the power of components, is that like some components can be hooks, some can be components.
That should be a shirt, power components, and then like a hook.
I like that. Components powered by hooks. Yeah, we added to state. I got distracted by the t-shirt ideas. So now we're saying, hey, here's my state. Down here, instead of schema, it's this now .state.form data. See if that works. It doesn't. This .state form schema. There we go. So now we need to take this response and update our state with the new items. So we're going to have this .set state, and we want to update it var const old form equals this .state .form data form schema. You want to do old forms .properties So because we want to add another field to our form, we want to add another property to our object. So we're going to say, hey, property, we want to add something called shelters. And it's going to equal, we're going to need a string. It's going to have a title of pick a shelter. Actually, I lied. This is going to be a number. It's enum and enum names. So these two arrays are what's called parallel arrays, and they represent the values and the names of what's inside the dropdown. So the enum is going to be a list of IDs. So the refs.data.map, give me the shelter ID. And then names, refs.data.map, is going to be, hey, give me the shelter.name. And then update the form schema with this new form. So we're taking the form that we created whenever we created the component, and whenever we get back what shelters we have inside of our database, we're going to update it to actually have a drop-down menu that has all the current shelters. Pick a shelter, Living Acres or Shady Pets. Loving Pets or Shady Acres.
Loving Pets, because we did Shady Acres last time.
Yeah, so let's add Terry the kitten. She's a jazz cat, age of 5, not kid friendly. Loving Pets, submit. Still a internal server error. It's not shelters, it's shelter ID. Haha. So it worked, submitted it. And now if I go to adopt a pet, there's Terry, our jazz cat.
Page 45.
Yeah,
In human years.
or yeah. It's been around the block a few times.
9 lives. It's on its 9 lives.
So yeah, we have a form that is driven from our data to add stuff to our database that has a relationship in it. I know it's a lot.
Yeah.
Whew. Whew-wee.
It's what you did.
Huh?
It's what you did.
Maybe. Maybe. Might be it for today. How are we feeling with this? I mean, it's nothing too crazy. It's a lot, yes, mind
It's
you.
know.
But it's trying to keep everything kind of in your head now. Is now on the client side, we now have a library that writes code for us. That controls what our form looks like. And that stuff that controls what our form looks like is API driven. Don't feel like you have to use this library. It's a really cool library, and it's good to know. It made creating a decent looking form easy without really writing any HTML or CSS. So just another tool inside of our tool belt.
You mean this library?
The
Bootstrap.
the Bootstrap and the React JSON schema forms library. So if your capstone has a lot of forms on it, you might want to look at this. If it doesn't have a lot of forms, it doesn't matter. I'll post videos in lecture notes. Lab time for the rest of the day.
Thank you.
So I know that just I haven't utilized this tool too much in the inspection window.
Yes. So this is the network tab.
Yeah, no, I'm more just taking my time to read it over. You can stop the videos and stuff. It's gonna start asking what stuff was, but as I continue to look, it tells me what certain things.
Yeah. Take a look. If you have questions, let me know.